Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Good evening, everyone. So today, the topic of discussion is going to be Anki. Now, what is Anki? Anki is an app for organizing flashcards. And now flashcards is not a new concept. So you may have heard of a lot of apps out there that do flashcards, but a little bit about why Anki is different and why it is the most popular flashcard app is that it not only helps you create intelligent flashcards and create various different types of flashcards that are tailor-made for different types of content that you may need to study. But what's really special about Anki is that it also helps you to organize them and review these flashcards in a systematic manner where through evidence-based research, it has been proven that when you do study flashcards with a spaced repetition or interval-based studying, it's guaranteed to boost your memory on a certain topic. So Anki harnesses this power, and it's the very code on which Anki is written. And that is why Anki happens to be the most popular flashcard organizing software in the world. And another great thing about Anki is that it is something that is available across all platforms. You can download it on your computer, be it a PC or a Mac. You could get it on an Android or an Apple, or pretty much any device can run Anki. So you can use this powerful tool to actually optimize the way that you study. A little bit about what students usually do. I myself, before I actually got to know about Anki, we would study using conventional methods. We would, get our books, the lecture notes, stuff we write down, and basically just, read through it, try to figure out what's there on the page, and try to memorize as much as we can. As a medical student, memorizing is a huge part of what we have to do. There is a lot of new information, and we have a ton of exams, and we have to, constantly keep up to date with what we're, studying every day at faculty, and then, keep revising it. And generally, the pattern that you generally see is that people tend to study well before an exam. They cram everything into their heads. And after an exam is done, because we know we have other exams coming down the line, we sort of keep all that aside, and then we move on to the next module, the next topic. And then, the process repeats. And with the hectic schedule that any medical student or any other student has, this is often the case where, knowledge doesn't carry forward. It's not retained over a long period of time. It's merely used to pass the relevant exam, and then you keep it aside and you move on to the next thing. That's one of the things that Anki aims to prevent. It's actually one of the most powerful tools you can use to continue to build on the knowledge that you already have. It helps you to not only gain new knowledge, but to maintain it, which is what's really important, especially if I'm referring to the field of medicine. We do a lot of different topics during our 5-year course, but we don't always remember most of the stuff, at any one given time. At any one given time, a medical student would try to remember the immediate preceding topics so that, that's what is relevant to their exam or whatnot. But with Anki, it actually gives you a tool where even after an exam, you'll be able to somewhat retain important information and carry it forward without even thinking about it. The goal of Anki cards, the goal of actually using flashcards with Anki, is to get to a point where that particular piece of information, the knowledge that you see, you don't need to think about it, you just know it. That is the level at which we try to arrive at. So without further ado, let me get started on starting from scratch, because now another thing that I must tell you about Anki is that it's not a conventional app. Now, anyone who is using a smartphone knows that You get various different apps. You get Android apps, you get iOS apps. And generally the purpose of an app is the person downloading it, they can just download it and get started right away. You don't really need to know anything much. But with Anki, there is a bit of a learning curve, which is why we're having this tutorial here in the first place. So how do you download Anki? Well, you can download it on the iOS App Store or the Google Play Store. It's available freely on Android, and it's available as a paid version on Apple. I'll get to that in a bit. But it is available free of charge for PC or Mac on the web. So I have currently gone to that website. If you just search Anki on Google, this is what you get. This first search result is what you get. And I'm assuming that everyone can see my screen at the moment. You just click on that and you're taken to this page where we were at. Now, here it gives you a brief introduction about the features of Anki and different reviews and all that. And when you come down here, you can see that there are various different devices listed here, different platforms, and you're given the option to download Anki. So this is our first step. When we want to start with Anki, the first step is we need to download the app. So we come down here, you choose your platform. If it's a Windows one, this blue button is the latest version, and you're supposed to click on it and follow the due procedure, and you will get it installed in your computer. So I have already done that for this device. So we can immediately go to the next step. We'll be coming back to this website, and I will be taking you through a few features that are very important. But for now, that is step number one. We have to download the app. Okay, so once you download the app, you will have it appearing on your desktop, and then you just click on it. And pretty much the first thing, I mean, this is all after you install it. You have to follow that due process for your respective device and install it. And after that, when you open the app, this is what you get. So you come to this page called Profiles. And basically, this is a way where even if multiple users are using the same device, each individual person can have their own Anki profile with their own decks of flashcards running to their own schedule, and it will not interact with one another. So even if 3 people are using the same device, you can use that same device and you can use your own, set up your own profile and study flashcards in that manner. So here I've already set up our tutorial profile, Studious Bob. Well, Bob is a very studious student, so he has started using Anki. So let's see how we can do that. I mean, the buttons here are self-explanatory. If you want to add a profile, you just add. If you want to open a profile, you click on that and open. I really don't need to go through that in detail. Open backup is a feature I will explain a little bit later. It's where if you have a previous profile and you're starting on a new device with a new Anki app, that gives you an option to import all your previous settings with all your progress directly onto the new device. So that is the purpose of that. Let's see what Studious Bob has in store for us. Okay. All right, so when we open Anki, we immediately come to our home screen. Now, our home screen this is a home screen which I have customized to a certain extent. As you can see, there's an image in the background, and some of these symbols, these are like, custom ones I've put. But when you open this for the very first time, you will come to a home screen which has a blank background, and it's pretty much similar to this, except certain features of this are not there. Now, I will be walking you through exactly how to set up your first flashcard deck, how to create your first flashcards, and how to use these special features called add-ons in order to enhance your experience. So let's get started. Now, typically, when you start, you won't have this here because you won't have any card decks, but you can see an option here that says Create Deck. That option is very important. Click on that. And it's as simple as that. They're asking for a name, so you can create a deck, test deck. And when you put OK, it basically appears at the top. And in the top, you have 3 columns. You have deck, you have view, and you have new. Now, how this works is once you start actually studying flashcards, you can organize. Now, when you're creating flashcards, you can organize them within folders, within folders, within folders. So you can, the amount of organization in this is pretty much endless, because you can create another deck, okay, sub deck. Sorry. And then basically you can just drag that and drop it onto this, and then your sub deck appears under the test deck, and you can add another one to this. So you get what I'm saying, right? So it carries on like that. Basically, once you have organized, you have built some cards and organized them into decks. So decks, you can imagine them as folders that contain specific cards relevant for a specific topic. So once you create a deck and once you start actually using it, if you add any new cards to this, they'll appear in the new column. And once you start revising cards, and let's say you have revised all the new cards for a particular day, and then next day, the software will prompt you with these due cards. Due cards are cards which you have already revised at least once, and the ones that are up for review, because how the software works is it intelligently prompts you with certain cards that are necessary to keep the memory of that particular subject matter at an optimal level. So basically, if you have studied a card and you have found that card to be easy, it will prompt you after a long time. If you have found that card to be difficult, it will prompt you after a short while. So that's just a little bit about what is due, what is new, and what is deck. When you come to the top here, you can see various features. So as we move along, I'll talk a little bit more about this, but in a basic sense, let's say you went to this subject, you click on it. So you get 3 options. You have 3 indicators here: new, relearning, to review. And basically, if you click add, you can now start adding flashcards to that particular deck. Right. So that's a little bit about the basic overview of what you get in your homepage. Now, I shall go into a little bit more detail about how these flashcards work, how you can create your own flashcards. And basically, a little bit before that is that, okay, this test deck, or any deck for that matter, you can delete at any time and get rid of it, or you can export it. That's an easy function there. So this is a deck I've already created for demonstration purposes. I created it in the same way that you just saw, by hitting create deck and typing what I need. And here we shall go through the different types of flashcards you can create. And as I go through this list, I'll also be explaining a little bit about what these buttons do as well. We already know what decks do. We already know what add does. We'll talk a little bit about browse, statistics, and synchronization later on. So let us start our lesson on how to make Anki cards. So I thought of structuring this lesson as a way of going through an Anki card deck itself. So the lesson itself is taught through Anki. So these are cards I've already made, and I will go through the cards, and at the end of which I'll teach you how that particular type of card is made. So this is the first card type we'll be learning about, and it is known as a basic card. Because why? It contains a front and a back. And at this point, I'd like to mention, when you are studying a flashcard, this is, if you're studying it as a basic flashcard, this is exactly how it will appear. You have a front side of the card and you have a back. In the front, you will generally have your question or prompt. And in the back, you will generally have your answer or statement, which you're trying to recall. And on the phone, generally when you tap on the screen, it shows you the back. But on the keyboard or laptop, you have many options. You can either click on the screen, or you can just press the space bar, which is what is like, that's the preferred mode of use, because like, pressing the space bar is fun. So you can press the space bar and it'll show you the back of the card. And when you press the space bar and it shows you the back, you are immediately prompted with 4 options. Now, this is a card that I'm doing for the first time. And this is actually a card that I made and went through once. But when you're doing it for the first time, you'll get 3 options. But once you have done it at least once, you will get 4 options. What these options are, they are buttons which determine the level of difficulty for you. So how it works is, let's say you have created a deck with around 10 flashcards, and you're now studying it again. Basically, you find that 5 out of the 10 flashcards you created, they're very easy. You immediately recall. You can click the easy button, and it'll show you above the time lapse with which the software will prompt you with that same card again. So if it's an easy card, it doesn't need to show it to you as often. So it can show it to you a lot later down the line to see whether you still remember it. But if it's a difficult card, it needs to show it to you at least, in a few hours or even like the next day, so that, if you won't be like forgetting that information. And if it's a really difficult card and you can't get it at all, you have this option to click again. When you click, so let's say you press the spacebar thinking the answer was correct, or you press the spacebar because you don't remember the answer, then you have to click this again button, because then you read the answer once. Okay, now you get a basic primer. It's known as a basic, like, first feedback. And then you will know that it'll prompt you again in less than 1 minute, because the software now knows, okay, this was the card that this person got wrong. So we need to show it to them again and solidify that piece of knowledge. So that is the purpose of these buttons. It gives you the option to tell this software whether a certain piece of information was difficult to retain, whether it was easy to retain, whether you don't need to see it again for a whole long time. It gives you that option. This is how, over time, over hundreds and hundreds of cards, the software optimizes it. And so as you really get into this system and start studying a large amount of information, you come to a point where at some point down the line, you're not actually, when you're trying to like go through, let's say an entire module with like 50 plus lectures, you don't need to study all 50 lectures in order to stay on top of that module. You'll actually be studying the pieces of information that were most difficult for you. You'll actually be studying the stuff that you're most likely to forget, while you're still studying the other stuff. It's just that, the software, like, tops you up periodically from time to time, so that, the easy stuff, it'll show you at a longer interval, while the more difficult stuff, it'll show you at a shorter interval. So over time, this balances itself out, and you come to a point where you're not even studying, like, like, let's say for like the neurology module, you'd have like over 1,000 cards, but once you have been through the initial few weeks of it, you won't even be studying it for like not even like 200 cards a day. You'll only be studying maybe like 150, and basically that'll be enough to stay on top of the entire module. You'll still be recalling pretty much most of the information very easily once you get to that point. So that is the beauty of this software. It analyzes each and every individual piece of information and prompts you accordingly. Okay, so I mean, I felt like that needed to be said at the get-go. So let's move on to the next card. So let's take a peek behind the curtain and see how easy it is to make these. Yes, of course we're ready. And now I go to the editing screen. Now, how did I get there? How did I go to this editing screen? So when you're using it in the laptop, you can see this little edit button there. So you can click on it, and then you are taken to this editing screen. So here we are. We are at the editing screen. And basically, As I mentioned, this is a card type known as a basic card. A little bit about card types. So another beautiful thing about Anki is that it allows you to make, as I mentioned, different types of flashcards, which are suitable for different situations. So I'll get on to how to exactly choose what type in a moment. But for the purpose of this particular topic, I'm telling you, this is the most basic type of card. There is a front, there's a back. And let's say you have a document open on one side, you can easily just copy and paste statements, questions and answers, and you can make this. It is very easy. And there are certain keyboard shortcuts which you can use when you're making these to make your life a lot easier. So let's say you want to make this bold, you can click Control B or Command B. It's the same as what you would get in Word. Or in Anki, you have Command F7 if you want to highlight it in a specific color. That's another option we can use. And you also have, so that, I mean, you can turn it into italics or, you know, add bullet points. It's really similar to what you would use in something like Word, for example. So that is about basic cards. And the great thing about these cards is, the great thing about basic cards is it's very useful to remember statements and answers to like simple questions. And as I mentioned earlier, I talked a little bit about interval repetition. So let me show you a little bit about what that is. So interval repetition is actually an evidence-based learning technique that is performed with flashcards. And newly, as I mentioned, newly introduced and more difficult flashcards are shown more frequently, while the old and less difficult ones are shown less frequently. And it exploits this phenomena known as the physiological spacing effect. So it's basically one where you have your memory grading over time, and you're giving it additional stimuli spaced out chronologically so that you're topping up your memory and basically maintaining your memory to the same level as you did when you initially studied it. So instead of studying, let's say, the content of 10 lectures on one day, impossible, but 10 lectures in one day and then just forgetting about it by not studying for the next 10 days, this system allows you to study one lecture per day while recalling the previous lectures that you have studied on the previous days. And pretty much at the end of 10 days, your memory would be at the level that it was when you studied each individual lecture initially. So that is the theory. And it has been proven by various evidence, like various types of research have been done in this regard to prove this theory and, you know, to prove the effectiveness of it. So, right, all these cards have been made in the basic card format. As you can see, I have put a question and I have put the answer in the back. So it's a very basic concept. And that would be the first type of card that you learn. Right. Now, what generally happens is, now here I'm not actually clicking on any of these buttons to like show what's happening. But now when I do, generally in the laptops, these 4 buttons are mapped to the 1, 2, 3, and 4 buttons. So like in the keyboard, the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 are mapped to these 4. So when you are using this, you can basically keep your hand on the keyboard and just press it along, like space bar to show the answer, and 1, 2, 3, or 4 to rate how good that answer is. And then you can move along at a faster pace. So let me just put all of these as good. So that, okay, so it's going to now I'm in one specific card deck, and since I didn't give it any prompts earlier as to the difficulty of the answers, it's showing me all these cards in quick succession again, and it will keep on doing this until you have actually studied this at least once. So that's another thing, you know, when you're initially starting out, if you put for every answer, if you put it as difficult or again, then it will keep on showing you the same cards again at random, like in random combinations, till you at least retain some of it. So that's where you get started. So now for each of these, I'm going to put it as good, which means it'll show it to me show them to me again in 10 minutes. So, and when I do that, can you see this little set of numbers here? So this set of numbers corresponds to the blue one showing new cards that I haven't studied yet, the orange one showing cards which I'm supposed to review again today, and the green one showing the total amount of cards which I'm supposed to review today. I will explain a little bit more about that as we go along. And now for the last card, if I put good again, that means I have none left to study. Now I don't have any cards left to study for that particular day. So even if I put study now, I'll get this prompt here saying no cards are due yet. So so this is a very basic introduction into studying with the most basic type of card on one particular deck. At this point, I'd like to just take a moment to ask whether anyone has any questions in this regard, because I'd like to clarify any doubts before going on to the more advanced stuff. So if anyone has any questions, I'll give you all a minute to ask. Right, so if no one has any questions, we can move on. Let me just check the chat. Yeah, if you all have. Okay, so we have a question. What's the timing of each option? Could you repeat that? Right. Now, the timing of the options is something that the software decides by itself, but you do have a certain level of control over this. I was I was going to get to this point at the end of the lecture where I talked to you about how to optimize the Anki settings. But for now, I'll just give a basic idea. So generally, when you start with a brand new card, okay, let's start one. Let's create a deck. Test deck. Right. And now I will go to test deck and I will add a card. Right. This is the basic card template. And I just click on it as add. And now I have a front and I have a back. Okay. Right. We have a simple question and we have a simple answer. And I'm going to click add. Right. Now it's been added. Now this window will stay there as long as you click enter and keep on adding new stuff. If you want to go out of this, you can either close this or you can click close here. And see, now it shows that in test deck, I've added one card. Now, if I want to study the card that I added, I click study now. And if you look down here, you can see it's a new card. And I mentioned that blue color means new cards. It's not a card up for review today. I haven't done it yet. And it's not a card that I previously reviewed and is due for review. So the green number and the red number are both 0. And now when I click on it to show me the answer. Right. Now it shows me the answer and it shows me these prompts. Now these prompts are the default setting. This is what you get as a default because I haven't changed any of the baseline settings in this. As Anki comes right from the web, once you install it for the first time and add a card deck and add a card for the first time and see its answer, these are the intervals that you would get. The again option will show you the card in less than 1 minute. The hard option will show you the card in less than 6 months. The good option will show you the card in less than 10 months. And the easy less than 10, not months, minutes. And the easy option will show you the card in less than 4, at the point of 4 days. So sorry, less than 1 minute, less than 6 minutes, less than 10 minutes, and 4 days. Okay, these are in minutes, not months. Yeah, so those are the options. And the cool thing about these is this is not a fixed interval, because if I, for example, check this card again tomorrow and the day after and subsequently, now let's say I click easy. Now it won't show me this card again for another 4 days. And when I do click on this in 4 days, it will give me a different set of options. It will still give me the easy, hard, good, and again option. But those options will mean that, okay, the again option will say that if I got it wrong, it'll show it to me again in 1 day, not in like less than 1 minute. And the hard option will maybe show it to me again in like 2 days, not like, less than 6 minutes. So the timing interval changes depending on how mature the card is. That's the principle here. So when you're just starting out, that's the basic interval that you get. But if it's a card that you've been doing for a long time, if you click, let's say like it's a card you've been studying for like 2 months, the easy option in that will only prompt it again in another 6 months. So it can prompt it again in a long time. So that is actually the principle behind those timing options. I will show you exactly how to tweak those options towards the end of this session. Right. So we have been through the general information, and I have shown you how a basic card works. Before moving on to all these other card types, let me just again go to test deck and click add, because this add screen is very important. It has many buttons, as you can see, and you need to know what all these do. I mean, most of them are self-explanatory, but I'll just go through them. So this type button shows the type of card you're going to create. The deck button shows what deck that card will be added to. And you don't really need to know about these two, because I mean, it doesn't do much. These buttons are various buttons that basically, you can make the text bold, like make it italic or superscript, subscript, all that. This is to give the text some color. All those stuff that I use shortcuts for. I mean, when you just hover over each button, it will show you what shortcut you can use to add that. So once you learn these shortcuts, you don't need to like be clicking these buttons. You can just highlight text and edit. And these I will talk in the subsequent texts. Tags here is a very important one. So what tags allows you to do is like basically same as tags on like Facebook or Instagram or anywhere. It allows you to intelligently group cards. So let's say you're studying 3 different modules and you're creating cards for all 3 simultaneously. And for each module, you have pharmacology, or like for each module, you have pathology cards, like cards which explain the pathogenic processes related to various illnesses in that particular module. Let's say it's neurology and cardiovascular and respiratory. Within each module, you'll organize your cards according to the lecture, the title of the lecture and the title of the module, and they'll be within their respective modules. But let's say you are studying for like pharmacology exam, and now you want to study all the pharmacology related to all the modules at once. Now you can't be going through each of the modules and trying to select, okay, this one has these like farm lectures. Okay, this module has these farm lectures. I mean, it's a tedious process. Far easier thing to do would be if you tag all your cards as pharmacology here, farm. When you are making them, later on, you can go to this browse, and then all your tags will appear here. Now here, since this is a brand new profile, there is basically nothing here. So I will actually explain this column and what it does when I show you my own profile and what I have done there. But basically, you can search from, now these are some tiny tags I created for the first 3 cards, but the tags will all appear under this drop-down menu. And when you click on a tag, all the cards with that respective tag will appear here. So that's a very easy way to study specific chunks that are spread out across otherwise a wide distribution of topics. And a very nice feature about this is that you do have an option to specifically study these things. I think I'll get to that last part. You can like do a custom study where like you can search cards by tags and study only the cards related to that particular tag. It's a fantastic feature. Right. So now I have taken you through a little bit about decks. I've shown you how the add card feature works, and I'm showing you what browse does. Basically, if you go to browse, you can search cards by keywords like, like to be or not to be. I mean, it pops up over there. So you can, browse is basically a way for you to browse to all the cards you've made, be it by tag, be it by topic, be it by card type, be it by any flags, be it by whether you have studied it today or whether it's an old card or new card. It's basically an intelligent way to search for cards. Right. Now, let's get back to our program. So, coming on to the different card types, we went through the basic one. Now, let's go to image occlusion, our first special type of card. Let's see what this is all about. Now, this is the first type of image occlusion you will learn about. It's called the hide all image occlusion. And basically here I have done a test card for y'all. Let's say let's say that this is a slide from one of your lectures and you have these three things like separation anxiety, strange anxiety, phobias of childhood, and there are different features under each. Now you can't be, now you only have the picture of the lecture slide, and you can't be like, typing all of this out and creating basic cards like with what is separation anxiety and then typing out all the different things. No, I mean, it doesn't make sense if you spend more time making the cards than actually studying the cards. So a really easy way of doing it is you use this function called image occlusion. Basically, you can draw shapes, you can import an image, like take a screenshot, and then you can draw shapes on it to cover up areas of interest. And then later on, you can prompt the card to ask you what area is covered one by one. That is the first type of image occlusion. So here, I've only taken this one image, this one anxiety disorders of childhood image, and I've drawn three shapes on it covering the different features. And then basically, it automatically creates three cards when I have done that. And when I'm studying the cards again, it will ask each of these one by one. So when I click on the first card, it shows me that. When I go to the next card, it shows me that. When I go to this card, it shows me that. The beauty of it is, now, I mean, you might be asking, why can't I just draw one shape and just, get it prompted in one go and just create one card? Well, let's say you remember all the features of separation anxiety, but you have no clue as to what are the features of strange anxiety. Then the card won't be able to tell which part of the card you remembered and which part of the card you didn't. So we use three shapes, and we can rate each of these three cards separately according to the difficulty level. So let's say the first one was very easy, it will prompt it again in 4 days. But if this one is really difficult, I can click again and it will prompt it in the next minute or so. So that is the beauty of using image occlusion to study these kinds of cards. Right. Let me go into edit and show you what has happened. So if you're going to edit here, it might look very confusing because, okay, there are various shapes and masks and there's like code here and all that stuff. No. So we're not going to go into edit there. That it's pointless trying to show it like this. I'll show you by making a new card. Right. So I go back to Dex. I go back to image occlusion. As you can see, the first one we type is called hide all because it's hiding all of the areas I've covered and only asking me for one of those areas. So that's useful for stuff like that. And I'm sure you can find a lot of other use cases, but this is one really useful use case. So let's say I want to add the card. Now I go to this thing called, I go to this thing called image occlusion enhance, and I choose that. Right. Suddenly it becomes a lot more complicated. Now there are like so many fields. So what do we do? Well, once we have chosen this card type, because we're trying to create an image occlusion card, we've chosen this card type. And basically I will now click on this tiny purple button here. Can you see, like, of all these buttons, this is the button that is highlighted in this particular type of card. Earlier, all of this was lit up, but here Only this is highlighted. So I click on that. Right. Now it opens up my folders, because in order for image occlusion to work, we need an image. So let's say we went into this. Right. Now I have images here. Let me select one of these. Okay, now I open it. When you do that, it will open the image. Oops. Sorry. When you do that, it will open this image in this entirely separate window called Image Occlusion Enhanced Add Mode. Now you have so many buttons here, and nothing to worry about. You will only need to know about 3 buttons. One is the shape button, and the other 2 are these 2 options here. So you have 3 shape buttons here. These 2 draw their respective shapes, and this one you can draw like a particular path and like occlude one area. But I'm just going to choose the most basic one. So let's say I want to study about what are the different etiologies of depression. Now I will draw. Now there are like 7 different etiologies given here: biological ones, psychological ones, and social ones. I will draw 7 different boxes because I want to make sure that I know each and every single one of these separately. Right. Okay. So for example purposes, I'll just draw 4 here. Now I have 2 options. I have the hide all guess one option and the hide one guess one option. Now the hide all guess one option is what we just demonstrated, where if you draw these 4 boxes and you click on this option, it will show you on the bottom left hand corner that you're adding 4 cards. Watch. See, 4 cards added. Can you see that? Now what it instantly did is, let me close this. Let me close this. Now it's added 4 cards. It's added 4 of these type of cards where it's prompting me and asking me about one particular type of card. Okay, just to put a small note here. These options I'm showing, they are all available for every platform. The reason why it may not be available if you have just downloaded it is because you have to add certain things called add-ons, which I will get to towards the end. The add-ons are what define Anki. So depending on your set of add-ons, it will define the features that you have. So don't worry about it. I will show you how to get all these features and show you the links for that. So that I will show after I just go through the types of cards. So don't worry about it. Okay, coming back. So as I just mentioned, this created 4 cards instantly. You're not manually creating cards, 4 cards instantly, just by drawing 4 shapes. And now, if I go through each of these, it'll prompt me the different areas which I wanted to study. And you can rate each of those individually. That's very easy. And okay, I can. And let me just delete that card for now. Okay. Right. So what is the other option that we saw? Well, the other option, that was the hide all option, which we just did. The other option is the hide one and guess one. So what it does is, now in this particular image, same as before, I have drawn 5 boxes over each of these. But instead of clicking the hide all guess one option, I click the hide one guess one option. So especially if you're studying something like anatomy, or if you're studying a diagram where each of the individual parts are labeled, you would want to test whether you know specific key areas, like finer points. Now in this one, it wouldn't really make sense to hide everything and then try to guess them one by one in that regard. But let's say this is something you're fairly confident about and you want to make sure that you know each individual one. It will give you this option where you can just occlude one and you're given the others as a bit of a prompt, a cue. So these are like the branches of the facial nerve. You're given clues. And then basically it will ask you what each particular one is. And this is how it will appear when you go through that set of 5 cards, because each box creates a new card. So that is the second type of image occlusion we learned about. So we learned about 2 options. And as you saw, your 2 options are related. Your 2 options appear here. The hide all guess one option and the hide one guess one option. I've just shown you how, I've just shown you how each of those different options work. And what you will use those options to study is up to you to decide, but I'll just give you an idea of what I use it for. It's basically to, let's say it's an information heavy lecture with a lot of diagrams, and I can't be like, and they never gave the lecture note or anything like that. So I only have the screenshots of the lecture. I will use this. I can include areas to try and create prompts and to try and create questions and then to try and revise. So it's a fantastic tool you can use, and it's very easy to know. So you only need to know about these 3 buttons and these 2 buttons. That is it. So I think that was clear enough. Right. Going on to the subject of close deletion. Now, we started with the basic card. We worked our way to image occlusion. This is the 3rd type of card we will learn about. So, welcome to the 3rd type of card we are learning about today. This one is called close deletion. Oops. So, a little bit about how it looks like. Now, in the basic card, in the basic card, you have to add a front and a back. But the beauty of close deletion is you can pretty much, like, let's say you copied and pasted a sentence, you add it, and then basically you can delete certain sections of it and force yourself to think, okay, what is that? Fill in the blank, what is missing? So it's a fantastic way for studying certain statements. So it's known as close deletion. And it's a perfect method for studying finer points and details, like, fill in the blanks, like, what is happening. And let's take a look at how this close card is built. Now, in another feature of this is you can also add hints to close deletion. So instead of just a blank, you can either give, like, now the hint I've added here is whether it's yes or no. So it's obviously yes. So, you can do that sort of thing. Let's take a look at the editing screen. So when you now, just as before, when you go to add and you select from the menu over here, you can select close deletion. That's the type of card you select. When you select that, you get this box called text, and you get this box called extra. The text is the only field we'll be working with here is the text field. Now, the text field doesn't mean that, you can only add text. You can add images to this. You can, like, modify the text in this. All that is there. This extra field is just like additional information that you'd want to know. Like, let's say it was like a yes or no question, just like this. But you want to add some background information that is shown to you once the card is shown, then you can, like, add that information here. I mean, the entire point of having these different types of cards is that it optimizes the way you make cards also. So, I mean, let's say you have certain sections in a lecture note, you can't be typing it, you can literally copy and paste it into this field, occlude the areas using this close deletion feature, and basically just create like a whole bunch of cards really fast, and then add additional information by copying and pasting here. Now you might look at this and think, good lord, you have like so many symbols and stuff added here just to, like, include one word. Doesn't that seem like too much work? Well, no, because the beauty of Anki is that you can use shortcuts. Now in these type of cards, let's say I wanted to include this word, basic. I just use the shortcut known as Command Command Shift and C, and it basically adds all those characters as a preset format. And now, if I look at this card, can you see this area has been occluded? And when I want to see it, it will appear and it will become highlighted also. So that's the close deletion feature. So it's perfect if you want to, like, occlude a certain area of a sentence and then study it again. You can use this feature. So I literally just did that particular bit. All of this was done like that. Now you can note this down if you want. The shortcut key for that is Control Shift and C for close. And I'll just give you an example. I'll just show you, like, okay, let me just completely rewrite this card. I'll just show you a little bit about adding clauses. So let's say you have statement 1, 2, and okay, okay, let's say you have 6 statements and you want to see each of these in succession. Like, you don't want to see all of these at once, but you want to make sure that you remember each of the separate statements, and you want to tell the software that the level of difficulty you have with each separate statement. Then you just, you select the first statement and you select the first statement and you click Control Shift C, and then it puts that in a close. You select the second one and you click Control Shift C again, it will put that in another close. Can you see it says C2 here? So C2 means it will create a whole other card where only this statement is occluded and the rest will be shown. That's another powerful feature of close deletion. So Control Shift C, it will do the third one. But let's say 4, 5, and 6 are statements which you want to see. 4, 5, and 6 are statements which, okay, let me make it a little bit more interesting. And right now, 4, 5, and 6 are statements which you want to study, but you want to see them at the same time. But they are, like, interspace between other statements. So you don't want to put the whole thing into, like, Command Shift C, and you don't want to put the whole thing into one, because you really want these middle bits to prompt you. So now what do? Well, you have another special. We were talking about close deletion, and we were talking about the basics of how close deletion works and how you can add certain different types of cards. I'll just go on to the second feature of close deletion, which is regarding multiple clauses. So multiple clauses would be something that you can use, as I mentioned earlier, to highlight different areas, such as, like, if you have multiple different sections within a same paragraph, and then you want to occlude one particular area, but you still want to see the others, and you want to assess your knowledge on that particular area individually, then you will use multiple clauses like C1, C2, C3. And that's what I have done here. So for these 3 cards, for each of these purple main topics, I have put a separate clause, so that if you go into the edit screen, you can see how it works. See, under C1, I have put one, under C2, I have put another, and under C3, I have put another. So that is how that works. And you can also put, instead of, let's say you want to see these parts in orange, but you don't want to see the parts in white. So then what do? Well, then you can put this clause as C1, and then if you put it in this way, where you highlight just that particular sentence and then add the first clause as that. Now, can you see all three of these? I have done it as the C1 clause. Now, if I were to look at it, all three of these sentences, just these three, not the orange bits, just these three sentences would get included in one card. This entire part known as C2 will get included in the second card, and the entire part known as C3 will get included in the third. So if I close it, okay, here it's including the third. Now it's including just, oops, this one. And yeah, here we are. This is how it would appear. So you can put the same clause for multiple different sentences where you don't want to like include the whole sentence. Like you like what I've done for these is I've included this entire chunk. But here, if you don't want to include the entire chunk, you can include just those sentences under the same clause. And for that, you just need to modify your keyboard shortcut as not just Command-Shift-C or Control-Shift-C, but you have to add the Alt key also. You add Control-Alt-Shift-C, and then it will put the same clause for each of these. So that is about multiple clauses. Now, we're almost done with clause deletion. This is a special card known as the clause occlusion card type. And for that, if I were to add a card, if I were to add a card here, I have to go to card type and select this clause text occlusion card type. Now, if I were to choose that and create a card, this is what would happen. So yada 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 text yada 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 text yada 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 text. Now let's say I want to include just these three. Now, if I were to just put three different clauses using Control-Shift-C, they appear as C1, C2, C3. But let's say I don't want to see all, I don't want to see like, you know, these three as three different cards. I want to see them as all in the same card, but not at the same time. So I'm being very picky here. So what would I do now? So now I use that second shortcut that I mentioned, Command-Alt-C, Command-Alt-C, and Command-Alt-C. Now, as you can see, it's all included under the same clause. So it won't create three separate cards. This will all appear in the same card, but it will appear in a very special way because of this clause text occlusion card type. So let's see what happens. I'll add this. Now let's see what happens. Okay, so here's an example card that I did previously, and I'll come to my other card also subsequent to this. In this example card, I've mentioned that it's perfect for studying sequences with multiple steps. So let's say you're trying to study a pathogenic sequence or something. It'll show you the first, but it won't show you everything at the same time. It'll occlude the other clauses, and you have to actually, now it's all under the same card. So there's just one card, but you can click on the next one and click on the next one to reveal it. And then you can rate this thing in one card. You can rate whether I know the pathogenesis of so and so in one card. So it is a perfect way. Now, here is the second thing I did. So as I mentioned, I put all of this under the same clause, C1. But when I want to see the answer, it will show me the first text first, and the second one I have to click, and then the third one I have to click separate. So it's a brilliant way of studying sequences. So that is the last card of clause deletion. Now, as you can see, if you look above, as we have gone through these cards, the ones which we didn't really go through still remain as new cards, while the ones we already did, and we prompted the software to say like, okay, this is difficult or this is good, it's now prompting us again saying that these ones are due. This is what it would appear in like any normal Anki homepage. Like if you are using it, you'll have new cards that you're supposed to do for that particular day, and you have due cards, which are reviews of ones you previously did. Right. Then coming to our last, no, one before the last card type. So something that you get a lot in medicine is you get to study lists, long lists of very specific types of information. And Anki can really help you there. So I'm going to go through two different ways in which you can study lists. And the first one is something like this, where, for example, this is an example card where what are the components of the MSc. Here, there are 7 components. And you want to know whether you remember each of the separate components specifically. That's what you want to rate. You want to know whether you know component number 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And you want to rate each card separately. I mean, it's very easy to do a basic card where you ask this as the question and just put all of this as the answer. But if you don't know one specific component, then the software won't know the difference. And you won't be able to rate it as such. So you use something like this for lists. This is called close overlapping, where you have put different clauses for each of these, but it's showing it to you in a way where, okay, that's just the first one. And in the second one, it gives you the prompt of the first one and it asks you the second one. In the third one, it does it where it gives the previous one and asks you the next one. And so it goes on like this. And lastly, it will ask you all of it. And then the cycle repeats at random. So basically, it's a way, one way in which you can study a list. I mean, different people have different ways in which these work for them. So this may work for some, may not work for others, but it is one way in which you can study a list. And I will, after I show you the second example, I will show you how these cards are made. So the second example is building a list where the list is built on what was done before. So instead of just showing you the singular prompt, the singular previous statement, it will show you everything that you have done before when it's asking for the next one. So that will look something like this. I show the answer, this is the next card. Show the answer, this is the next card. Show the answer, this is the next card. Show the answer, like that. You can see it's like building the list card by card. And let's say this is a really difficult one. I put it as again, and it will show it to me first the next time. So that is how that type of list is built. So how do you do this kind of card? So there again, we go to add and we go to this section called close overlapping. Right. Now, yeah, I have chosen close overlapping, choose. Now here you get lots of text fields and all that. You don't need to worry about any of that. What you need to know is where you have title, that's the question. So what? Right. And your statements come over here. So for example, and now you can basically just copy and paste all your statements here and they'll just appear here. Now, you may be wondering like, how does it figure out which one to show what and all that? So here, there's a little bit of an extra step. You go into this. This says generate overlapping clauses. So this is the baseline setting. You click on that once and it'll generate all those cards. Like, okay, here there are how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards. It'll generate 7. Plus, it'll generate one more card where it shows all of the statements at once. So it'll do all of that automatically. Okay, all you need to do is put the question here put all the different statements that you want to study in that particular list, and just click on this particular thing here. If you hover over it, it says generate overlapping clauses. Right. So yeah, that is one way of doing it. Now you saw the second way where it builds on top of the previous card. So now here, in order for you to do that type of thing, let me just copy this so I don't need to do it again. Okay, and just paste it here. It shows it as red because I've already made one card, but it doesn't really matter. I can just delete these. Okay, now it's not red anymore. It'll show, it'll prompt you red if it detects that you are trying to do the same card again. And it's smart like that. Okay. Right. Now if you want to do this in such a way that after the first statement appears, it doesn't go away, and if you're like at this point it'll show you all of the ones previously, you have to do a little bit of tweaking. Instead of just this, you go to this settings icon next to it. It gives you overlapping clause options. Now this again is self-explanatory. All the stuff you need to worry about are these three: context before, clause prompts, context after. So what do they do? Well, context before is how many statements before the statement that they're asking is required to be shown. So what that means is, let's say now here there are 7, right? If I put it as 8, even when it's asking the 7th one, there's still room to show all the previous statements. But let's say I put this as 4, then what would happen? Until the 4th statement, it will show. But then after that, let's say if it's asking me this thing like perception, then it will show only the top 4 ones, and appearance will again disappear. So how many statements of context is seen before, how many lines, that's what this says. Close prompts is, okay, so close prompts is somewhat like how many prompts should each card ask. So if I put this as 2, then it'll ask me in groups of 2. Like it'll ask me both the top 2, then maybe the next 2, then maybe the next 2. If I put it as 3, top 3, next 3, next 3, like that. And context after is just like context before, like after one particular statement, how many lines afterwards should be visible. So that's the idea behind that. I mean, I'll just show you, for example, put this to 8 and put this to 2 and add those to just show you what it looks like. So we put now, see, it's asking, it's including 2 of these at a time. Can you see? And the top ones are appearing. So you can configure this any way you want, basically to suit your heart's desire on how to study this particular list. You can configure it, and then you can study 2 by 2, 3 by 3 with the ones appearing, without the ones appearing, with the ones appearing below it. It really is up to you to decide what kind of card you want to create. So that is lists number 2, building on what was done. So right, I guess that brings us to the end of the different types of cards. I went through 4 different types of cards here and different variations of each. We went through the basic type, we went through image occlusion, we went through clause deletion, and we went through how to build effective lists in Anki. Now, I think one of the most important ones is how would you do MCQs with Anki? There's a very special type of card you can use, specifically built for multiple choice as well as single best response questions. It's the Mcq Review Template. Let me show you what it looks like. Right. So I thought of making this a little bit more interesting. And this MCQ is on Anki itself. So let's take this small quiz. Which of the following statements are true or false? You can see that you have options to click on these here. Anki is too complex and difficult for you to learn on your own? No. Anki cards are difficult to share among friends. Anki is by far the most efficient study method for long-term retention. Yes. The best way to study lists is by cramming it all on one basic card. Hell no. Anki intelligently organizes your cards according to interval repetition method. Yes. So let's see. Now, when I press the spacebar, let's see what happens. Right. When I press the spacebar, it'll show me whether or not the statements I got were correct. Let's say I got one wrong. Okay, let me just put it as again. Okay, let's say I put difficult to share among friends, yes, and like I'll just randomly put some to show you what happens when it gets it wrong. Okay, now it'll show you that these are wrong, and it'll show you the percentage of answers here. So the percent, wait, just this, yeah, it'll show you the percentage of how many answers you got correct for that particular MCQ, and you also have space here to add in, like, you know, explanations. What I've added as extra is like, I'll explain what this means in a bit, is where it's a space where you can type in, like, you know, the explanations for your 5 different stems in a particular MCQ. So it's a very, very useful template for studying MCQs. Let's take a look at what it looks like. So let's say, okay, I go to Dex, MCQ reviews. I want to add an MCQ. First of all, I have to choose the all-in-one card type. So this is the card type I use for MCQ reviews, and this has 3 different modes in which you can use it. I'll show you what that means. So this is where you put the question. So the question statement goes here. You can give it a title also if you want, like, you know, title could be something like related to this particular module or whatnot. The question goes here. Here you have to type what type of question it is. Now the 0, 1, and 2 stand for this means whether it's a yes or no type question. The MC means whether it's just statements, whether you have, like, just choose the correct statements. Now it's this, and SC is like for single best response, out of which, because it's programmed to show you like how much of percentage is correct, and also it needs this information in order to accomplish. This is where you put the 5 different stems, and your answers have to be like, you have to tell the program what the answers are. So whether it's true or false, if we have selected a true or false type one, we can put like, okay, I'm putting 0 here because I want to put true or false one. Okay, let's say, like, you know, yellow, blue, green, purple, and red. And maybe my question is, what are the primary colors? Right. Now, from these, I have put in the question, have given it the 5 stems. I've typed in the question type. I'm going for a yes or no type question here. And for the answers, I will have to put in the answer code. So how the answers work is, a 0 indicates a no answer and a 1 indicates a yes answer. So I put 1 space and then 1 space 0 space 0 space 1. After the last answer, I can't put a space because otherwise it will just mess with the system. That's just something I noted. And maybe I could put in some details, like, you know, okay. Now let's see what it looks like. I added it. Close this off. And okay, if I don't select anything, it'll just do that. And then, right. So it comes as this. What are the primary colors? Okay. And another thing you can see here is, I don't know whether you noticed it before, but this is not the order in which I added the statements. So it randomizes it. It randomizes the statements so that let's say now these are MCQs you've been doing for a while and you're studying for exam, and then you're just studying them again and again. At a certain point, especially when you're doing it on paper, at a certain point, you might even come to a point where you memorize without even thinking about it, you'll memorize the order in which the answers appear, especially if you do the MCQs again and again. With Anki, there's no room for that because it randomizes the statements. So every time, even if you remember whether it's just true, false, true, true, false, or something like that, it's not going to work with Anki because it's going to randomize the statements, and then you won't know which is which. So now you have to actively think, okay, purple is not a primary color. No, green is not, but yellow, red, and blue are. And then when you ask for the answer, it will show, yes, 100% of the answers are correct. And you can there's added information you can add here. So that is how you do MCQs using Anki. And I think that wraps up our detailed dive into card types. And I would just like to, before we come to the conclusion, I think I want to go through a little bit more about what are these add-ons. So when you come to the home page like this, when you go to the top, you see the toolbar. In the toolbar, you have Anki, you have File, Edit, Tools, Help, various stuff here. Preferences, I will first go on to preferences before going on to add-ons, because this is what came up earlier. So when you're initially setting up Anki, there are certain default preferences. That's how the system comes. But there are certain things that you need to tweak in order to make your experiences better. So I'll tell you what I tweak, and you don't really need to tweak any of the other stuff, but these are the things that I focus on when editing my preferences. So one thing is that I put my day to start at 4 hours past midnight. So this is something you can change. That is basically when the program will calculate when the new 24 hours start. Like it goes by day. That's how it, calculates the time intervals. And this is when it decides, okay, this is a new day. This is the point at which this is today and this is tomorrow. So I have put my personal one at 4 hours past midnight because I do most of my cards at night. But let's say someone does most of their cards in the morning and they want to completely finish everything. They finish everything by night and go to sleep by 9. Then you can put your day to start at 2 hours before midnight. You can put it at 10 p.m. So basically you can alter that depending on your schedule and what works best for you. So that's something that you have to change depending on what suits you best. Another thing that you have to change is another thing that you have to change in this thing is show new cards after reviews. So I feel like this is the setting that works best, which is where if you're studying every day and you're studying new stuff on top of the old stuff that you're already studying, you'd want to study the old stuff first and then move on to the new stuff. Otherwise, things can get a little confusing, because if you're studying the new stuff first and then there are difficult things there, and then you move to the old ones and there are still more difficult things, then it's all just going to jumble together and then you won't get anywhere. So this is a setting that you can choose according to your preference. You can choose new cards before reviews, or you can put mix new cards and reviews. But the setting that works best for me to keep things very organized and clean is show new cards after reviews. Okay, so those are the 2 settings that you can tweak in preferences to optimize your study plan. Now, there's another thing that you can do, another area where you can tweak stuff, which is the decks. Now, you see this little star mark here. For y'all, when you'll download this initially, it will appear as a cogwheel, something like this, I think. And you can tweak the settings for each individual deck. So if I click this here, I can tweak the options for this particular deck. If I click this here, because it's now this is not exactly one deck. This is accumulation of all these decks. So if I click this, it will change the options for multiple decks. So that's something you need to be concerned about. And the thing about, organizing it like this is, if you just want to study this, you can click on this and just study that. That's what I've been showing you all along. But if you want to study all of this, let's say it's all mixed together and randomized so that you don't know where the questions are coming from, whether it's coming from this one or this one or this one, then you just minimize this and just click on this. And then you study all those decks simultaneously at random. So, you're being tested, you don't know where it's being tested. It's like, let's say, you have like 3 different neurology lectures you want to study. But let's say if you're studying about Parkinson, you are not going to be asked questions purely on Parkinson. It will be mixed in with your other 2 decks, which might be on multiple sclerosis or which might be on Guillain-Barré. So it'll mix it and mash it so that when you're focusing on one area, it's not just, going only along that line and you're just stuck in a rut. You're basically effectively trying to recall all this information. So it kind of solidifies it. I don't know what works best for you, but these are all options which are at your disposal. Right, so when you go to deck options, these again are default settings that come with it, but I just change a few things, few key areas just to optimize it for myself. One is that I asked the program to show me the new cards that I'm to study in a random order. You can put it in an order that's added, or you can put it in random order, it doesn't really matter. If it's something you're studying for the very first time though, I do choose it to go in the order that's added so that, for the first prompt, it's a little bit easier to grasp the wider concept. And this new cards per day limit, just put it to the maximum possible thing, because the whole point of using Anki is to get the maximum out of it. And if you are someone who creates a lot of new cards and then studies them little by little, then of course you wouldn't want the new cards per day to be this one. But if you're someone who just creates a little bit of new cards a day and just wants to get through the day by studying those, you can put this to the max limit. Then you can go to these reviews panel and put reviews per day also to the maximum limit. But let's say you have if you haven't been doing stuff in Anki for a long while and you're trying to get restarted, you can't suddenly be doing 1,000 reviews a day. Then you can set a limit here and it'll only ask you to do the limit, the 259, it'll ask you to do just 250 per day. Then, then here is the most interesting setting here. It's known as maximum interval. Now, what does that mean? This is the maximum interval of the easiest card when the cards are very mature. So as someone asked earlier, how is that interval determined? Well, this is the answer to that. So how this works is, now, let's say I put a maximum interval of 180 because, okay, I don't have any exams coming up. This deck that I'm studying is I know it fairly well. And so certain cards, I just wanted to prompt me, the easy ones, I wanted to prompt me in only 6 months because my next exam is 6 months away. Then you can put it like that. But let's say you have an exam coming up next month. And if you still keep this as 180, then certain cards which you found to be easy, they will never be prompted to you before your exam because they'll only be prompted to you after the 6 months have passed. So you want to prevent that. What do? You can put this as maybe 20 days. Now, even your easiest cards will be asked of you again before your exam in 20 days time. So that's so basically, if you're closer to exams, you put this as the number of days, let's say the maximum number of days for exam is 30. You put a number here that is less than that, and you are guaranteed that you'll study through every single card in your deck before that exam date arrives. So that's the principle behind it. The maximum interval is the maximum interval that the software will prompt the easiest possible card. So for your exam, you want to go through everything. So you want to even go through the easy ones. Then you use a low maximum interval and make sure you go through that at least once. So the last setting here that we can describe is that this. So what is this? So you come to lapses. What is this leech action? What does it mean by leech? So a leech in Anki is a card that no matter how many times you study, you never get it right. So let's say there's a card which you repetitively keep getting wrong. So those are your leeches. They are like, terrible. Like no matter how many times you try to study, you can't seem to remember it. So you can set a threshold. Like let's say after like 10 times, after getting it wrong 10 times, after clicking that again button 10 times, this is the action that the software will perform. It will tag that card. So let's say you're you're well into using Anki. After a while, it will show you that, right, now you have this amount of leech cards. These are your most difficult cards. What do you want to do about it? And then, you can choose to focus and specifically study those cards which you keep getting wrong. And that helps you solidify information which is difficult for you. So you can just keep it as tag only. Don't suspend the card, because suspending is an action where it gets rid of the card and like doesn't prompt you ever again. So don't do that. You can keep it as tag only. So that's the setting you have to change. Don't worry about this. I think when we are posting this video online, in the description, I'll post all these preferences and this deck settings that are optimal, so that you can always refer back to that and change these. Right. I think that brings us to the end of the session. I have gone through pretty much all these cards. No, we have one more thing to do. One last thing, which is add-ons, which is very important. I mentioned that I'll come to that towards the end of it. So add-ons are the reason I'm able to do all this stuff. The reason I'm able to have a picture in the background. The reason I have this, what is known as a heat map, which I'm not going to go into details of. The add-ons are basically what turn Anki into a very user-friendly app. So all these features, these MCQ type cards, these close deletion type cards, they're all add-ons. And so what you can do is you can go to this, you can go to tools and you come to this thing called add-ons here. So you click on that. And here, these are add-ons which I've already added. Now, how do you get these add-ons? So add-ons are basically like little chunks of features that you can add on to your program to make it better. So how do I get these? Well, I mean, here it says get add-ons. I click that. Oh, it's asking for a code. So what do you do now? Well, you go to this thing called browse add-ons. When you click on that, it takes you again back to this Anki website where it shows all the add-ons that have ever been created for Anki. So many, because people keep making these every day. The most popular ones appear at the top because these are ratings that people give based on how good they are. And they do everything from like, showing you a progress bar to showing you a heat map to showing you how to do MCQs. All the add-ons that I have were added from that. And in order to use Anki just as I've used it, easiest thing is you can like, I'll be sending these add-ons as like, the names of these. When you get your own Anki thing, you can go to like you can go to tools, click on add-ons, go to this page, and then get add-on, browse add-ons, and let's say it's the close deletion one that I want to find. Okay, close overlap. Okay, the close overlapper one I want to find. Okay, I go to this add-on, and to download this add-on, please copy and paste the following code. So I copy this code, and it's as simple as coming back here and pasting it and clicking OK. And then it just downloads it and adds it, and you just need to restart Anki and it will work. It's as simple as that. So it's self-explanatory. You just get add-ons, you go there, you click on it, copy the code, add the code here, and you got it. And the best way to do this is like, to know what add-ons to get is I will be sending this list as part. I think we can attach it as part of the video description. So you'll be able to get all these, and then Anki will work just as what I have shown you today. Like all the features that you saw, which you may think are missing from the computer version, it'll all be there. So in conclusion, this is Bob. Bob doesn't spend hours cramming lectures and notes before exams. Bob uses Anki to study little by little efficiently, and Bob is not stressed close to exams. And most importantly, Bob remembers stuff after the exams are done. Be like Bob. Thank you. Okay, I think that wraps it up. I could actually show you guys maybe a little bit, since we talked about it, about my own profile. I'll just, I mean, it's something that I have been doing for a while. So this heat map is something that shows me all the like cards I've studied previously and what is being done in the future. It shows me how many cards are due at any given date. I can go into my statistics to see, like, you know, how well I have been studying, what difficulty levels I have achieved, how my cards are, whether they are mature, whether they're new, whether they're suspended, how many review intervals I've been having. All the data is there if you ever need it. I mean, not even I go through all that stuff regularly, but this shows me what is due, and like if it's a particular module per lecture, how I would study that. And basically, it's a really good way of organizing all your information. That much I have to say. And if I go to browse here, as I mentioned, my browse is like filled. I have various different card types. I have so many tags, like hundreds of tags. And if I were to ever go to something like, for example, like pathogenesis, okay, so where is that? If I go to pathogenesis, you get everything from TB to encephalitis to various pathogenic mechanisms in mental health. So all my types of pathogenesis I have under this. So it's a very, very easy way to organize all my information and just study better, I would say. And I could search by how many cards are new, how many cards I have left to do, whether I have any done again. It's very, very easy to, like, you know, organize the information with this. So yeah, that concludes it. And yes, do you all have any questions? I'd be happy to answer. Yes, let me go through the chat. So yeah, me personally, as I'm studying medicine here, I make my own decks. I also sometimes get decks which are made by my friends, and then I, you know, somewhat I modify them to suit my own needs. See, what a little tip that I could give you is that if you are making decks with friends, like, you know, if you're collaborating with a bunch of people to make card decks, the first and most important thing you must do is you have to, like, get together and decide what kind of decks you want to make. It should be agreeable by all parties concerned, because some people may like to just put an image, occlude the image, and just, you know, make a bunch of decks like that. That method may not work for you. You might like to add it as text. Some other people might like to do it as closed deletions. So the methodology matters. So you need to agree on, you know, how these decks are made. And if you find someone whose methods suit yours, and then you all can easily collaborate and make decks. It's very easy to share these decks also, as I mentioned earlier. Let me just show you. Open. You can just go here and export, and then it exports as like a file, and you can open it in any device, literally. So it's very easy to share decks. We share these through WhatsApp. So it's a very easy way of doing it. And yeah, you can get pre-made decks. Like for medicine, you have plenty of pre-made decks, but sometimes they're not always as suitable for our curriculum. I don't know, it doesn't seem like very efficient to do that. If you are someone who is interested in learning a specific topic, then by all means, yes, they have a lot of decks available. But for me, I make decks which are specific to my university and my module and my curriculum. So that's the most effective way that I can think of. Okay, so if you all have any questions regarding stuff, I'd be happy to answer. I'll be sending some references, and I'll send the list of add-ons that I have, as well as some YouTube channels that y'all can follow for even more details on how to optimize Anki for you. So I guess that wraps it up. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Yeah, so okay, thank you so much, Raveen, for that very informative guide on everything that we need to know about Anki. And I think now we can finally study better without actually making studying boring or like tiring. So, and also I'd like to thank everyone who joined our workshop today. And I hope Anki is now your most favorite app as well. And if any of you missed anything, you don't have to worry because we've recorded the entire session and we will be uploading it everything on our social media platforms. So just make sure that you have subscribed, followed, and liked, especially our YouTube channel. So that you can keep updated on not just information but also exciting events like this. So for instance, next week we'll be having a very interesting event with one of the very reputed psychologists, lecturers on how to cope with various mental challenges that we face when we work from home and especially online learning. So the registration links will be uploaded on our FB and Instagram pages. So please do stay updated. And I hope this session was very helpful to every one of you. And thank you, Raveen, again for this wonderful workshop. So good night to everyone and stay safe. Bye-bye.